Person I'm going to introduce is a wonderful woman by the name of Rebecca Duran, who has been active in the fight to free Mumia, has been active in the anti-death penalty struggle, speaks several places, and also takes a lot of her time to go see Kevin Cooper, and a good friend of Kevin Cooper, and she brings to you. Please welcome Rebecca.
Has asked me to give his love and his greetings to everyone in this room from his cell on death row. It's an amazing honor for me to be able to speak for Kevin Cooper. I think a lot of the people in this room were out at San Quentin tonight back in February of 2004 when the state of California came within 3 hours and 42 minutes of executing Kevin by lethal injection. But it was a mass movement. It wasn't just in the state of California or in this country, it was the whole world. The whole world got together stop the execution of Kevin Cooper. It was church groups, socialist groups, everybody in between, independent activists, and we stopped that execution. And a major part of that movement to stop the execution of Kevin Cooper was KPFA and Dennis Bernstein, who never let us down. They never let us down. They were always covering it and giving us the support that we needed to keep the struggle alive. And I think that night, back in 2004, was the only time in my life that I've gone to a planned protest and it's turned into a celebration. And it was an amazing celebration when we stopped that execution. But if you fast forward now to 2008, the state of California is one step closer, one big step closer to executing Kevin Cooper. Last year, in January, we organized like mad to get people into the courtroom. The Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals agreed to hear Kevin's appeal, and we filled that courtroom. So much, we filled the courtroom so much that we actually had an overflow room downstairs. It was amazing. But we were outraged. We were so incredibly enraged when we were going into the courthouse, and we found out that the 3-judge panel that was going to hear Kevin's case, that was going to decide his fate, they didn't even show up. They dialed in via video conference. And one of the judges didn't even do that. She dialed in via teleconference because they knew they were going to deny Kevin his appeal, and they didn't want to look at us. They didn't want to feel the eyes on them. So, of course, they have, back in December, denied Kevin Cooper his appeal. He had 10 very strong points and a lot of evidence, including DNA and eyewitness testimony that proves that Kevin Cooper is not only innocent, but he is the victim of an incredibly racist police frame-up. Now, the decision to deny Kevin relief is one of the most shocking things I've ever heard in my life. Judge McEwen, who is one of the 3 judges on the 3-judge panel, who is supposedly the great liberal judge, actually said, in a concurring, not a dissenting statement, she said that the decision to deny Kevin Cooper relief is quote-unquote disturbing. She went on to note that the evidence used to establish Kevin's guilt has been lost, destroyed, and left unpursued. But she said, despite the presence of serious questions as to the integrity of the investigation and evidence supporting the conviction, we are constrained by the requirements of the Anti-Terrorism and Effective Death Penalty Act of 1996. In other words, because of this incredibly reactionary bill that our good liberal President Bill Clinton signed in 1996, Kevin's rights and a lot of other inmates' rights have been incredibly restricted. It actually says in this bill that executions can go forward if violations of defendants' constitutional rights are deemed not unreasonable. And that's what we're seeing in Kevin's case. His constitutional rights have been violated, but it's within reason. So right now we're waiting for the Ninth Circuit to decide if they're going to give us a re-hearing with the 9-judge panel. And just like Mumia, Kevin is in a lot of trouble. He is one decision away from execution, or one decision away from possible freedom. If these 9 judges decide not to hear Kevin's case and to lift this moratorium in California, Kevin or Mike Morales will be the first to be executed. And then there will be a string of executions after that. So we have to get together again and fight for Kevin's freedom. Just like Mumia said, we can save Kevin Cooper, but let's free Kevin Cooper. So I want to say I have a gift for Dennis Bernstein from Kevin Cooper, because you are organizing yet another amazing, I'm sure it's going to be amazing, interview with Kevin. And you did, Kevin and Suki Williams were incredibly close. I think it was December 7th, 2005 that you did the last interview with Sam. So I have a gift. Yeah, take it out, show everybody. The painting is called Equal Rights, and Kevin is an amazing feminist, and it's one thing that occupies his mind all the time is the women's struggle. And it's called Equal Rights because he says under capitalism, women are winning equal rights because we are filling up death row and prison cells as quickly as men now. So that is kind of it.
I'm not going to do that. I'll just quickly say a word about my first meeting Dennis Bernstein. It was right after the Gulf War, and there was an event that was called in Boonville. And I was asked to come and be a speaker. Dennis was called to be a speaker. Judy Barry was called, Alex Coburn, and I'm leaving some people out. But that was the first night that I laid eyes on Dennis. I came up there, and I knew he had just joined the station. And I said, which one's Dennis Bernstein? He said, over there. And he was sitting at a table by himself, and I went over and sat down. And from that very first moment, it was a friendship. Dennis and I hit it right off. We're both vicious East Coast people. And we had a lot in common. It was out of Dennis's ability to be a fabulous journalist that he's the person at KPFA who brought us the information that we desperately needed about the Gulf War. In fact, Flashpoint's show came out of that. And he reported relentlessly, telling us things that we've never heard about this issue from anyone else. And it's not just about the Gulf War. It's about Palestine and standing up and taking a lot of heat for standing up on the issue of Palestine. Dennis has been in there working and reporting about Mumia Abu-Jamal, letting us hear Mumia's voice as often as we can. Dennis is a remarkable person. Sometimes when I look at Dennis, I feel like I'm looking in the mirror because we react in the same way over a lot of issues. And people react to us as a result of that, I might say. But I just want to say that I'm very pleased and honored to have had him, you, as my friend and confidant all these years. Thank you, Dennis.
And let's welcome Dennis Bernstein.
Thanks, everybody, and really, are we okay? I see. Here we go. One. Good. Well, thanks, Jeff. Thanks, Laura, Pam, everybody, Kilu. I actually wrote something down because there's a bunch I wanted to get in and I didn't want to ramble. This is very important to me, and I am honored to be here. I thank Mumia Abu-Jamal, of course, above all else. He is a journalist of the highest order, whose current beat happens to include death row. I will do everything in my power to change that, to see my brother, reporter, walks free. I have to admit, this is, besides everything else, a case about censorship. And short of death, locking somebody into death row is as close as you can get to extreme censorship, but I guess it didn't work, did it? So I say again here, free Mumia Abu-Jamal, free Leonard Peltier, free all political prisoners, which is about every person in prison, end the war against the people of Iraq, against the people of Palestine, against the millions of migrant workers. You know, I say migrant instead of immigrant because, you know, they like to say, we didn't cross the border crossed us.
Yeah.
And end the war against the people who live at the border. That's everybody who doesn't look like John Wayne is going through checkpoints now. So end that war at the border, and I wear my no torture ribbon all the time. As you know, the United States has adapted as a key forward fighting tool of the so-called phony war of terror is torture. Imagine that. To Mumia. I heard about Mumia in the early 80s when I was doing prison teaching at Rikers Island and doing a prison abolition show, radio show, Beyond Bars, on WVAI in New York with poet and flowmaster Perry Thomas. Perry had served a dozen hard years and had written an amazing book, Down These Mean Streets. Anybody here read it?
Yes.
A most extraordinary book. I used to use it in my prison classes at the Women's House of Detention in Rikers Island. It was always getting stolen. I told them, steal all my books, whatever. That's the highest compliment. Incidentally, I used to teach at the Women's House of Detention, and in my classes were the only time that men and women were allowed to come together. And believe me, when I turned around to write on the board, I don't know what the hell was going on. But as long as it wasn't going on when I turned back around, everything was okay. But there was some scuffles. But, you know, as I would get searched going into the prison, and they'd always find, you know, lots of number 2 pencils, you know, the speeches of Martin Luther King. I used to teach moral issues in prison, can you imagine? And I had a chance to teach essays by Martin Luther King, and of course, the concealed weapon was my mind. And I always used to think about that as I went into the prison. You're gonna have to have a better X-ray job than you got there to understand what's going on for me. So that was important in terms of getting oriented. And of course, Langston Hughes, I was bringing in poetry, you know, like, you know the poem Motto, I play it cool and dig all jive. That's the reason I stay alive. My motto is, as I live and learn, dig and be dug in return. You know that one? So this is what I was doing with my prisoners. I started a poetry column at WVAI's Folio, and I started an alternative press library in Rikers Island Prison in the Women's House of Detention. I was deeply engaged in resisting the expanding prison system. I remember I did a series, a documentary series, and I asked my prisoner class what I should name the series, and it was really revelatory. They said, I think you should call it Getting Used to Prison. And so they have expanded. Mumia Abu-Jamal. It's crystal clear to me that it's the power of his voice. Well, let me just say this first. Mumia practices journalism the way it should be practiced, first person and through the senses, a combination of information and passion, and language crafted for maximum impact. His commentaries are poetry and prose combined, and because of the great work of Noah Hanrahan, J.R. Valerie, and several others, it's clear that Mumia is not only a writer, but he's an orator. He can write, and he can speak with authority. And it is crystal clear to me that it is this power of his voice, backed up by Mumia's commitment, that makes him a very effective revolutionary journalist and a thorn in the side of the powers that be. The only thing Mumia is guilty of is truth-telling. He is on death row for telling the truth while black. He told the truth, for instance, about the brutal, racist, and corrupt Philadelphia police force. He told the truth about the slaughter and suburban aerial bombing of women and children and men while they're in their homes. Just to name a few things that might get under the claw of the powers that be. Oh yeah, he's in jail for telling the truth. To be sure, his crime is truth-telling, reporting to the people about what's really happening in the centers of power, and carefully and bravely monitoring those centers of power, police power, governmental power, judicial power, you know, the dirty courts, corrupt judges, prosecutors, monitoring the center of power and passionately reporting the truth. That is the power of Mumia Abu-Jamal, whether he's in the streets, working for public radio, or locked deep in the back of death row. Very, very powerful voice. He's an example for the journalists, the weak-kneed, jellyfish stenographers that call themselves journalists today, that follow orders, take notes, and want to make sure they get invited to the White House when it's time to have cocktails. He's not that kind of journalist. He monitors the center of power. That's our job as the Fourth Estate. We're not stenographers. Information is a human right. Mumia knows how to use that human right. I thank him for his gift, and I want to offer back one to him and to all the honorees today. I made a little poem collage. I call it Jenna 2008, Remembering Emmett Till. Y'all remember Emmett Till? The spark of the Civil Rights Movement? I've put together a little collage here before I read the poem. On one side, you've got a picture of Emmett Till, an incredibly handsome man. And below, you know, the family insisted that the coffin remain open so that people could see how brutally he was beaten. A very courageous act in itself at that time. And next to it, I have a photograph of the recent protest at Jenna. And the poem is called Jenna 2008, Remembering Emmett Till. It's short. After so many years, a lie grows deep roots. Branches strong.
When Lynn was on the witness stand in her own trial, facing 30 years in prison, they looked at her right in the face and they said, "You violated the SAM, Special Administrative Order, saying that you could not use the sheet to release press releases. If you disagreed with that, why didn't you go to the courts? Why didn't you file a complaint? Why did you just go ahead and violate the law?" Now, any dishonest lawyer would have found any one of a million reasons to answer that question. And do you know what Lynn said to the jury with her life on the line? She said, "Let me tell you about the case of Mumia Abu-Jamal. His mail was being opened, that he and his correspondence between he and his attorney. And Mumia did file suit, and it took 2 years to win a victory. And I didn't have 2 years to represent my client. I did what was necessary to defend them." If you have to pick that example in the age that we live in. And the second was even more incredible. In the final summation, her attorney said to her, "Lynn, with the jury absolutely riveted to this answer. If you had to do it all over again, would you do the same thing? And a tear came to her eye, and I was just 30 feet away. And she said, I would like to think that I had the courage to do it again. And I tell you, they don't make honest people like that and fighters like that anymore. Thank you for receiving our honor. This is a benefit for the mobilization to free Mumia Abu-Jamal. This is about our 13th year. And the first major event we had, we raised $100,000 for the legal defense. And we have been struggling to continue that. Now we're having a benefit to keep the good work of the mobilization going. And it's my job here to do a fun pitch. If I could ask those two wonderful people in the back, Rebecca and Josh, they have some cans and stuff. But I want to do a kind of fun pitch that's a little bit different. Because the last two times I did it for Lynn in New York, instead of just saying, let's pass the bucket and throw in what you can, I did something very unusual. I said, yes, we're going to do that, but is there anyone here who can start this fun page off for the mobilization to free Mumia Abu-Jamal, who brings you the finest and the best unity that this movement can produce? Is there anyone who'd like to start off by writing a check for $1,000? Laura said if she had it, she would give it. Well, just think about that, and I'm going to ask you to consider a check for $500 to the mobilization to free Mumia. Is anyone considering that amount?
I'll do 500. I don't got my checkbook with me, but I'll pledge it to you. How's that?
Fantastic. All right. Jonathan Mitchell, who was marked on and pledging $500. Thank you, Jonathan. How about $200? Can we have a pledge or a check for $200? There's one. Ralph Pointer.
I was going to loan this to Jeff to rent this hall, and he said he didn't need it. Just to Mumia.
In case you don't know it, Ralph is one of the best fighters there is. When the cops, the FBI, and a small army knocked on the door to Lynn's house, Ralph, started giving him lip. What are you doing here? Where's your warrant? And so on and so forth. And Lynn rushed to the door and said, Ralph, don't worry, we'll have you out in 5 minutes. And the FBI said, it's Lynn we want, not Ralph. As Ralph had spent a lot of time in jail in the struggle for human rights, black freedom, and for the freedom of every person that struggled. He was one of the major leaders in the struggle in 1968 in Ocean Hill, Brownsville, against the racist strike conducted by Al Shanker, teachers union, for those of you who remember. So we were at $100. There's $100. One. Thanks. Clarence Thomas, Longshore.
I'll pledge $100.
I said one in the name of all of us now.
100 for the name of all of us. That's $300. 400 from Gloria Lariva.
From the National Committee to Free the Cuban Flag.
From the National Committee to Free the Cuban Flag.
Jonathan Richman is a singer and songwriter. He's written songs for Mumia. In the 70s, he had a band called the Modern Lovers. And recently, he organized a concert at the Great American Music Hall in support of Mumia. And he has performed all over the world, and he sings in 5 different languages. And so here's Jonathan Richman.
Hi. That's what you make me a freedom fighter like these people who actually have risked criticism and in some ways risk personal health. So I appreciate these are the real deal. I'm a singer, I make up a few songs every once in a while. Thank you so much. I appreciate them so much. But a freedom fighter on the level of these people, I must demur, is that correct grammar? In any case, I'll sing you a song. How about that? They toil not, nor do they spin, but even Solomon was never dressed like that. No, not no one, not like that, not like that. Well, the lilies of the field, they just sway in the wind all day, but no one is ever dressed like they. Not Solomon, not like they, not like they. So you and I don't need to work. So you and I don't need to care anymore.
Described as the queen of nothing sacred. And she takes on everything from animal lovers to presidential politics. Andre the Wonder Woman is an unforgettable performer, telling the truth in a very funny way. She has been named Oakland's funniest comic on this strip and the funniest woman in Half Moon Bay. She's also she took first place in the first annual Russian River Resort Comedy Competition and Piaf's Cabaret Competition. She performs at the best comedy clubs here in the Bay Area, such as the Punchline and Kimball's Feast, and now she's here to perform for us. So give her a warm welcome.
Thank you very much. I'm very honored to be here today, particularly to be in this secret-ass meeting place. They ain't gonna find us over here. Took me so long to find it, I thought it was a setup. Anyway, let me just clear one thing up because, you know, the war on terror is very much on everybody's minds, and I don't know about you, but I'm a little disheartened by the government when they have these officials up there and they can't quite define terror for us or torture for us. And I don't know about you, but I figure torture is any kind of shit I don't want somebody to do to me. Very simple, you know what I'm saying? Now, I don't know, I don't have a whole lot of faith in the electoral process, but I have to say I'm glad that there is an election this year. Because in addition to lying, stealing, and everything else this administration has done, I think they have set back the atomic clock as well. This is the longest ass 8 years I have ever seen. So I'm very happy about that. Personally, I don't understand why people are following behind George Bush anyway. He ain't got the brains to lead a parade. I don't know about you, but every time I see him, all I can say to myself is, don't you think his eyes are mysteriously close together? Talking about he's in favor of standardized testing in the schools. I'll support that policy when he can pass. And while I'm on the subject, let me wish everybody here a happy 4th of July. I realize that's a little odd, but I wasn't with you on the 4th of July, and I want everyone here to know I'm always available to celebrate the white man's freedom. The white man don't feel free as hell for the rest of us. For my part, I will celebrate diversity. A lot of people have problems with diversity. I don't know why that is, but they do. Personally, I embrace diversity. I understand there's some differences between me and white people. For example, I ain't never walked past a mountain and had an urge to climb it. I got some other shit to do. Same thing with bungee jumping, I don't like that. Any kind of sport where my black ass is up at the end of a rope. I have what you might call an historical aversion. And you know, I think since this whole war on terror, people, I think the country's gone all wrong. I think we've become a police state. And if you don't believe me, have you noticed how every television show is a police or crime drama now? NYPD Blues, CSI, Cold Case, Cops, Law and Order Criminal Intent. What about Law and Order SUVs? SUVs ought to be a crime. And at the risk of offending some of the people in this room, I just have to go on record and say I hate SUVs. You can't park them. Need 5 people to help you park it. You're not going camping. All you're doing is running down to Costco buying them some more stuff you don't need. And running over your little fat ass diabetic children because they can't get out of the way fast enough. I personally think they got the car named all wrong because we buy these SUVs because people in this country have gotten too fat to ride in anything else. They ought to call them the SUV. Get your big ass in the UV! That's all I'm saying, people. And it is, you know, an election year, a lot of controversial issues. Immigration is one of those issues. And you know, I think we should deport illegal immigrants in the order in which they came. I'm so glad y'all get that joke. A lot of people try to act like they don't know what I'm talking about. And you know, I do spend a lot of time talking about white folks in my act because y'all give me a lot of material. What can I say? But I don't want y'all to get the wrong impression. I don't just talk about white people. I talk about black people too, because we make me sick. I ain't got time for these petty race and class differences. As people I can't stand. And you know, black people make me sick too, because we love to jump on the bandwagon. Don't have to know nothing about the issue, but we down with it. Like black people in favor of the death penalty. Ain't nobody going with your poor black ass. Or black people who are anti-immigration. We don't like immigrants, they taking all our jobs. Black people ain't had no jobs. Carry your black ass too far outside California, you can't get back in. And then you know my favorite is black folks being homophobic. Swear we hate some homosexuals. No, all our asses grew up in the church where the choir director was a flaming fat. Just like Liberace every Sunday. And you know, I think people make too much of sexual preference anyway, even in the liberal Bay Area. People are saying, well, what is your sexual preference? What is your sexual preference? How much money you got? Because I'm flexing. Or they'll say, well, Andre, how come every time I see you, you're in the company of a beautiful woman? When I'm by myself, I'm in the company of a beautiful woman. Personally, I think bisexuals have it the worst. Because you know, when you're bisexual, people get mad at you. They're like, hey, you gotta choose! But you gotta admit that being bisexual does enhance your chance of getting a date by 50%. Plus, it gives you insight into who you are. Because if you're bisexual and you ain't got a date on Friday night, something bad is wrong with you. You know, it's bad when you gotta start dating outside the species. Now, you know, we are excited about the election, I have to say, and I think many people would agree that in some ways it's the Democrats' election to lose. I think people would also agree that the Democrats have shown an astounding facility to do that, lose elections that they shouldn't lose. But a lot of people ask me, well, do you think that Obama has a chance? Yeah, he got a chance to get shot. Not that I wish that on his brother, you know, but a lot of people are excited about his candidacy. I would say to myself, because apparently he ain't been watching 24. For those of you who don't watch that show on 24, they killed the black president twice. So I'm very hopeful, but I'm always reminded that there are a lot of grassy knolls in the United States. A lot of grassy knolls, that's right. So Obama better be careful, and Tiger's ass better not win one more term. But you know, know, I want to say my part before I go to encourage people to get out there and vote. I really would like to see more unity among blacks and browns. I don't understand why we have so much contentiousness between us, especially since we have so many. That's right, I'm down with the Latinos. Mis amigos me llaman la flaca. But I'm always upset about this tension between blacks and browns, you know, because we have so many common themes running through our history and our experience. I don't understand when black folks say they don't like Latinos. No, they ass love some rice and beans. Only reason they ain't eating tortillas because ain't nobody told them about it. But I'd like to see more blacks and browns unify and work together. And I'm encouraging everybody to go out on February 5th and, of course, for the presidential election and vote, exercise your right. People died for that. And I particularly want to encourage black and brown people to go out and vote, and I got a plan. On election day, go down to the polls, go in, cast your vote, come back out, and get back in the line. Because they think we all look alike anyway. Vote early and vote often. Thank you very much.
That's great. Couldn't survive with some kind of sense of humor. This world's just too hard to not keep smiling. We have many, many people here who have been involved in Mumia's struggle for a long time, and we want to thank them for being here. Carol and Bonnie and Colleen and Cameron, and we just have a room full of terrific people. And we want to, again, thank you for coming and staying with the struggle. Our next speaker, I believe, is here's Clarence. Ah, great. This is going to be exciting. I'm very proud to introduce our next speaker. He is a Black Panther, the former Secretary-Treasurer of Local 10 of the Longshore Union. He was a dynamic leader in bringing the motion, which passed, that shut down every single port from Mexico to Canada to free Mumia. The real Clarence Thomas.
Peace and solidarity. On behalf of the International Longshore and Warehouse Union, Longshore Division, I would like to extend our greetings to this great gathering on Super Bowl Sunday. And I'd like to say that it's appropriate for us to say in unison, free Mumia Abu-Jamal. 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 It's wonderful to have such nice things said about you, but I do want to make one clarification that I was not the person who was the chair of the mobilization to shut down the port in support of Mumia Abu-Jamal. That individual is the person that I'm going to be introducing, Brother Jack Heyman from Local 10. Jack, will you stand up? We are sitting on hollow ground with respect to the trade union movement here in the Bay Area. For it was just right on Embarcadero that the great 1934 strike took place, led by an immigrant worker by the name of Harry Bridges and others. But I'm here to remind everyone who may not be aware of it that today's trade union movement, in particular its trade union members, are far from monolithic. In fact, We don't have enough progressives in the trade union movement today. We've got Democrats, yes, and even Republicans. It's a reality. So when you acknowledge the ILWU for taking such actions as we did in support of Mumia, one has to understand that it's not easy being able to get those kinds of resolutions adopted. Unfortunately, there are many elements in our union that are very much caught up into white skin privilege, who vote against their own class interests. And it takes a tremendous amount of courage to be able to make motions and resolutions that pertain to expressing solidarity with Mumia Abu-Jamal, especially with the power of the corporate media today, where people will automatically assume that Mumia is guilty, not recognizing the injustice of the criminal justice system in America. But one of the things that has been made very clear to many of our ILWU brothers and sisters who are right of the left of center is that they've had an opportunity to see and to hear with their own eyes and ears this tremendous voice for the voiceless, Mumia Abu-Jamal. There have been many occasions when he has taken positions with respect to issues directly affecting the ILWU. Our contract negotiations in 2002, we were locked out by Pacific Maritime Association with the complicity of the Bush administration. The action that the ILWU, in particular Local 10 and the Longshore Division, took in support of the Charleston Five, Mumia spoke out. He's spoken out about the manner in which ILWU members have been treated with regards to its past jurisdiction that now is being held by Hornblower, that has the contract to take people out to Alcatraz. He's spoken out on that. He's spoken out with respect to the Million Worker March movement. The only time that the ILWU has led any kind of a national mobilization in Washington, D.C., attracting trade unionists from all over the world. So people have been able to see with their own eyes what this man is all about. And I think that when we talk about being freedom fighters, we have to put something in perspective. We're not asking people to necessarily put their lives on the line. But what we're asking people to do is to understand that they stand on the shoulders of others who have. And that we have an obligation to not only come out on Super Bowl Sunday to gatherings like this, but we have an obligation to express our solidarity in whatever manner that we can. Do what you can to contribute to the movement. And I think no one better exemplifies or personifies that particular philosophy than Brother Jack Heyman. Because Brother Heyman has stood up against many, many odds in our union and has put forward the agenda of the freedom of Mumia Abu-Jamal around the question of our class interest. And this is not easy. It's very, very difficult. So to conclude, I would like to ask Jack to come to the stage. Brother Jack Heyman.
Thank you for that introduction, Clarence. I want to actually pick up on some of the remarks that Clarence was saying. This is a historic area here, the Embarcadero. It really shows the power that the working class has. And it wasn't that long ago, at least in my book, that the Longshore Union took a historic stand against apartheid in South Africa when it was existing. The ship came in by the name of the Ned Lloyd Kimberley here at Pier 80 in San Francisco. And my local, I'm proud to say, took action based on a motion in the union meeting to oppose apartheid by taking action on the docks to show concretely how workers have the power to bring down that government. Before I go on, let me just point out Howard Taylor. Will you stand up? He was one of the people that helped organize that. Leo Robinson, Billy Cross, and a number of other of our members were instrumental in making that happen. And when Nelson Mandela was released from prison and he did his world tour, he came here to the Oakland Coliseum and he acknowledged that it was Local 10 of the ILWU that ignited the spark here in this country that finally brought down the apartheid regime. And so we're very proud of that. But that's not to paint a rosy picture that everything's hunky-dory in the labor movement in this country, and particularly in the ILWU. We have our own problems. Clarence alluded to it. One that's going on right now is that we had incidents of hangman nooses being painted on pictures, on people's t-shirts. Several incidents of this down in the port of Los Angeles. And I'm glad to know that Clarence has been on top of this. We have a Longshore caucus going on this coming week, and he's going to bring up a resolution condemning that and making sure we put an end to that. Is that right, Brother Thompson?
That is correct.
Thank you, Clarence. And he'll be there. I can assure you that he's going to get it passed. So we got our work cut out for us, no question about it. But before I go on, I want to thank the Mo for giving me this award on behalf of the ILWU. I want people here to see what actually happened. I don't know who here, Jeff, you push the power button and then you push the play. I asked Jeff, who's the technician here, the high technician, for a big screen and DVD, but we didn't have any of that. So we'll do the best we can. Hopefully you can hear the audio, so you might have to turn up the volume on that. But this was in April of '99, when the defense movement for Mumia was at its peak. We need to rebuild that, by the way. There were 25,000 people here marching in the city of San Francisco. Just whenever it's on, I'll just shut up and you can see the pictures. We had 25,000 people marching here in San Francisco. At the front of that march was the ILWU, with our banner saying, "An injury to one is an injury to all," and our chant was, "An injury to one is an injury to all, free Mumia Abu-Jamal." So will you join me on that chant real quick? An injury to one is an injury to all, free Mumia Abu-Jamal. An injury to one is an injury to all, free Mumia Abu-Jamal. Thank you. Is it on now?
It's on. Walk off the dock through the streets of San Francisco to help you execute. I'm Bert Lawson. Story still ahead.
A huge demonstration today in San Francisco to protest the scheduled execution of a man who is now known around the world. Mumia Abu-Jamal is on death row in Pennsylvania, convicted of killing a police officer almost 20 years ago. His writings about the American justice system have made him somewhat of an international celebrity. Well, today's rally coincided with his 45th birthday. Vern Hawkins reports.
Dock workers say Saturday's a big overtime day to move tons of goods that come through ports. They say nothing moved on the day shift today. Instead, longshore workers, labor leaders, and social activists made a 2-hour march through San Francisco to protest and try to stop the execution of Mumia Abu-Jamal, convicted of killing a Philadelphia police officer 18 years ago.
I think people are recognizing that what we're experiencing really is a crisis in democracy. It's not only about Mumia Abu-Jamal, it's about a prison system that is larger and larger, and that focuses on punishment for profit.
Dock workers say today's the day to come here instead of going to work. And stop work rallies affect all 22 ports along the West Coast. There's Chicago, Native American. A mega rally in Philadelphia drew more than 3,000 people, some from as far away as France.
What we want to tell the workers in Pennsylvania is that what the Longshore Union is doing out here in California, they can do in Pennsylvania and save the life of Mumia Abu-Jamal. If the black transit workers in Philadelphia and the bus drivers and the steel workers in Pittsburgh decided that this is an important case, as we have decided, then it's in their power to stop the death machine.
Back in the early 70s, Mumia Abu-Jamal, former Black Panther member, took to the airwaves to protest what he called police repression of the black community. Just months after the death of the officer, Jamal was sentenced to death. Supporters called his trial a mockery.
The first trial was a travesty, and the establishment and the media, particularly in the East, have taken up cudgels to prevent the last thing in the world is another trial. And our objective is to get that trial before they off him by keeping Mumia in prison, who has become one of the small voices of this decade. We are putting ourselves in the position to the world of being oppressors.
Our petition is before the Supreme Court to review Jamal's case. If that doesn't happen, his execution is expected to take place within a year. In San Francisco, Vermont, the Talk News.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks. So that's what happened in April of '99. And a few months before that, it's important to note that there was pretty much a media blackout on Mumia. We couldn't break through on the news. In Oakland, the teachers had voted to do a teach-in on the death penalty and on Mumia Abu-Jamal. A cop got killed, I believe it was in January. And the press was hysterical. They said, how can you have a teach-in for a cop killer? Mumia Abu-Jamal, he's a cop killer. And there was tremendous pressure put on the teachers' union. But they prevailed. In the face of all this, they did have a teach-in on the death penalty and on Mumia Abu-Jamal's case. And that kind of broke things open for us. So in April, we were able to get through on the press. I'm proud to say also that the Oakland Education Association, the teachers' union, is continuing it in that kind of militant tradition. This coming week, they're going to have another teach-in on Mumia Abu-Jamal, February 11th through the 14th. Pam alluded to this earlier when she spoke about this new book, Murdered by Mumia, that was published by Maureen Faulkner and Michael Smirkonich. This right-wing disc jockey, radio disc jockey. I just want to touch on a couple important lies that are in that book. And one is that they repeat the assertion that Mumia Abu-Jamal never said what happened on the night of December 9, 1981, when police officer Faulkner was killed. And they also try to resurrect the myth that Mumia never declared his innocence. That's bullshit. It's nonsense. In the very beginning of his trial, Mumia said he was innocent. He also requested a police lineup before he went to trial. Is that right, Tim? Right. Now, you got to be out of your mind if you're going to request a police lineup and you think you're guilty. All right? Now, that was told to Clarence and me in 2002 when we were marching with his attorney at the time, Marlene Kamish, here in San Francisco. The Mauve had a march. And she said this from the podium, that Mumia requested to be in the lineup. Thirdly, let me say that Mumia's own statement, his own affidavit puts a lie to this. And this is what he says in his own words. I was filling out my log when I heard some shouting. I glanced in my rearview mirror and saw a flashing dome light of a police officer. This wasn't unusual. I continued to fill out my log trip sheet when I heard what sounded like gunshots. I looked again into my rearview mirror and saw people running up and down Locust Avenue. As I scanned, I recognized my brother standing in the street, staggering and dizzy. I immediately exited the cab and ran to his screen. As I came across the street, I saw a uniformed cop turn toward me, gun in hand, saw a flash, and went down on my knees. I closed my eyes and sat still, trying to breathe. After he blacked out, and then he woke up when he was being beaten by the cops. And that's from Mumia's affidavit in May of 2001. Now, what's damning evidence against the prosecution is that one of the, Michael Schiffman just came out with a book, The Race Against Death. And the good thing about the book is that he's come up with these photographs from actually a photographer in Philly who was pro-police. He offered these photographs to the police and they didn't use it. But Schiffman got a hold of it, and what these photographs show unquestionably is that one of the main prosecution witnesses, this taxi driver Chaubert, who said he was parked right behind Faulkner, the police officer's squad car, there was nothing there. It's a lie, a fabrication. It shows that Chaubert's testimony was false. The second thing that the photographs show was police officer James Forbes holding the alleged weapon that killed Faulkner in his bare hands. And he testified that he didn't touch it with his bare hands, that all the evidence was untainted. I mean, this is a frame-up through and through and through all the way. And then finally, what's clear is they said in the prosecution they made Mumia out to look like a cold-blooded killer. And he stood over the officer, straddled him, and fired point-blank into the officer's face. One bullet, they said, went through his head, between his eyes, and the rest hit the sidewalk. Well, there are no divots, nothing, in the sidewalk.
What's a divot?
It's a hole. Kind of like when you play golf and you hit the grass and there's a little hole in the sidewalk. So these are compelling pieces of evidence which show that Mumia is innocent. Now, very quickly, because I don't want to go through all of the history of the case, Schiffman's book was good and it exposed these photographs. But what he's weak on is he tries to create this scenario where Mumia ran out of the car and with his gun in hand and went up to defend his brother, and somehow, maybe, he said Mumia wasn't a killer, but he shot in self-defense. Well, Mumia never did that. He never said he did that. So why would people who are trying to defend Mumia come up with these kinds of scenarios? In my mind, that can only hurt his defense. And so, what I said in the video that you saw here is that it's the working class that has the power to change things. And that's why I appealed to the transit workers in Philadelphia. They do have the power. They could shut the city down. That's what happened in New York City just a couple years ago. The transit workers, overwhelmingly black and brown, shut the whole city down. They shut it down. That's the power that workers have. But they have to be convinced that they have the power and that their struggle for better working conditions and benefits are tied in with the struggle against racism. One other lie that's told in the book by Faulkner and Smirkonich is this is a lie by omission. They don't point out the fact that there were 3 separate federal investigations into the Philadelphia Police Department for corruption. They were pushing drugs, prostitution, numbers, all that stuff. That's nothing new. I think all of us in this room know that police departments, not just in Philadelphia, but around the country, are notoriously corrupt. Okay? There was a federal government they had hired a cop to report back to them, an agent within the police department. And by all descriptions, it's very close to who Faulkner looked like. He had a brother who was in the police department. He had a camera on him, on his body when he was killed, that was used to photograph special kinds of things for the police. Okay, that gives reason for the police to kill one of their own. Now, that happens all the time. Ask Frank Serpico. Do cops kill cops? You're damn right they do. Because there's a lot of money in corrupt police forces. And so there is testimony available, not only by Mumia, but by William Singletary, Arnold Beverly, and others that show that Mumia was in his car when the shots went off, and that he's innocent. That's an important component of this whole thing. And we have to begin to mobilize like we did in 1999. With thousands and thousands of people, not only in San Francisco, but especially in Philadelphia. So I urge everyone to be out there the day after for the demonstration, the day after the decision comes down, if it's negative, and also 3 weeks after, Saturday 3 weeks after, a demonstration that's called in Philadelphia by the International Concerned Family and Friends. Let's all be out there, because I don't have the confidence that Jeff has, quite frankly, that the courts are going to rule in Mumia's favor. We have to let them know that if they dare to tamper with the life of Mumia Abu-Jamal, we will be out there, thousands and thousands of people across this country. Thank you very much.
Just a correction in Channel 7 or whatever the channel was. By the way, that tape has all 5 TV channels covering that demonstration. The Philadelphia demonstration that they said was 3,000 was 25,000. And the demonstration that we had in San Francisco, sponsored by the mobilization, was 25,000. And those were the largest demonstrations for a political prisoner in the modern history of the United States. And we're going to be there again and again until they free Mumia. Our next award is given to a very special fellow who can't be with us tonight. His name is Alan Benjamin. And he has, he's a bit ill, and he has sent a representative, Billy Phillips, to speak in his place. But I want to say a few things about Alan and Mumia. First, he organized the first delegation in the history of the struggle of prominent international trade unionists and prominent people in public life, including Martin Luther King III, to essentially go into the Justice Department and demand that they receive petitions from people all over the world, including 1 million people who signed a petition for Mumia's freedom in India. And he organized that delegation, and the State Department had to send an official representative to listen to what they had to say. Alan was also introduced several. There have been 2 resolutions or 3 passed by the Central Labor Council of San Francisco calling for a new trial. And Alan worked with the mobilization to get the City Council of San Francisco twice to demand a new trial for Mumia Abu-Jamal. So on behalf of Alan, a tireless fighter for Mumia, and Alan is the editor of the Organizer newspaper, let's give a grand welcome to a member of the Socialist Organizer group, Billy Phillips.
I know Alan very much wanted to be here, and he sends his greetings to all of you, and I'm sure he's feeling better. He'd be back in the struggle, and he's at home, probably on his computer, organizing right now, which it does no matter how sick he is. Jeff said a lot of the things I wanted to say about Alan. Alan's done some amazing work around this effort, and Alan does amazing international work. Okay, as Jeff pointed out, he organized this delegation to the Justice Department. It was some 30 people. It was from 7 different countries. He has some politicians and labor leaders from other countries, from Great Britain and Germany and South Africa, Martinique, France, and Spain, Brazil, and a lot of people here, as Jeff mentioned, including Pan Africa, was part of that delegation. And yeah, yes, and there was Dick Gregory and Walter Fauntroy and Randall Osborne and many other African American activists and activists from across, Valdemar Velasquez of the Farm Labor Organizing Committee, many other prominent people in this country as well on that delegation. Later on, that was in 1999, later on he helped organize a tour of South African union leaders who toured around the country and spoke out for Mumia as well as about the issues in South Africa. He organized this petition drive that Jeff referred to, which was a total of 1.4 million signatures internationally, and I believe close to half of those were from India, but not, I don't think, a million of them, but some 728,000, I believe, were delivered in boxes directly by the delegation, and the others were mailed to them. So that was a huge effort. And the reason why Alan's able to do this is because he belongs to an international federation of organizations called the International Liaison Committee that has people in some 70 countries. And with a few emails and phone calls, he can mobilize that network all over the world. And that's what is important. And that shows how even each of us as individuals can play a role if you're part of a large international movement like Alan is. Alan also asked me to bring up one other thing while I was up here speaking. And several people have alluded to Palestine, and the International Liaison Committee has actually circulated a petition, which I'll pass around when I step down, for a case in Palestine for the justice for the South LML 8. These were Palestinian residents of Israel, not of the occupied territories, who were convicted a few weeks ago for over 8 years for organizing a labor protest against a welfare and unemployment program in Nazareth, which is based on the U.S.-Wisconsin plan, which you know has been actively fought by welfare rights groups, including the welfare warriors in Wisconsin, who are great supporters of the Sarge LML 8 and have publicized their case also. So these are people who were convicted of organizing a demonstration illegally, which is not true. They were convicted of, thank you, they were convicted of assaulting a police officer when the reality was they were attacked by the police themselves. So I'm going to pass that around. It just goes to show you what kind of a person Alan Benjamin is. He didn't want me getting up here and speaking without pushing another international campaign for people who are being wrongfully convicted. So free Mumia Abu-Jamal. Thank you, Alan Benjamin, and I'll give this to him right away. Thank you very much.
To talk about justice, to talk about the barbarism of the death penalty, to talk about the importance of organizing people around very important issues, whether it's the death penalty, for Mumia, or many, many other anti-war issues. So please welcome Daryl Hire. In case you forget, you won't.
I'm going to be quick because I have a very special person. Sorry. How's that? I'll be quick because I know you're getting tired and you've heard a lot of wonderful speakers, but I have another wonderful speaker that I want to introduce to you. But let me first say, I first heard Mumia's voice on KPFA radio thanks to prison radio, Noel Hanrahan and all the folks at KPFA radio. And I'd never heard his voice before, and at first I thought it was Malcolm X, and I thought to myself, I'd heard every recorded speech of Malcolm in my life, and I'd never heard this one. And then I learned from KPFA that his name was Mumia Abu-Jamal, and he was on death row, former Black Panther. And they were offering these tapes as a dividend. So his mother, JoJo's, my son's wife and mother, and I bought the tape, I paid a premium to KPFA radio, and we got the tapes because we wanted our son, JoJo White, to hear the voice of another American hero because we felt at the time, like Howard Zinn once said, that it's a topsy-turvy world when people like Mumia Abu-Jamal are on death row and people like George W. Bush are in the White House. And we knew that young people need heroes. They need people from many communities to guide them and to show them strength. Jojo read the autobiography of Malcolm X when he was 12 years old, and he read the diary of Anne Frank when he was 13, because we wanted him to know what human beings are capable of. He's seen a lot of shit in his world. So Jojo got the tapes, and he just loved them. And he shared the tapes with his friends. And I want to jump to August, I think it was 1995, wasn't it, Kilu? When we had the march in Oakland, California. And as a father, it's hard to express the great pride I felt when my son Jojo and his young friends from school and from the hood and from the hip-hop community joined 700 other people. And to me, it didn't feel like 700 people marching for Mumia all the way across the country on death row. It felt like 7 million people. And I was so proud to march side by side with my 22-year-old son. As not a father, but as a comrade, as a fellow freedom fighter. And I felt so proud because my son had been a 49ers fan, he was a basketball fan, he was always for #1 and all that. And to watch him evolve into a fighter was very important, very, very rewarding for me. 6 months after that, he was murdered in the streets of San Francisco. And that's why we organized the Jojo White Solidarity Project. And that's why when we went to Cuba, for example, thanks to people like Gloria La Riva, let me say that when we first went to Cuba in 1996 to celebrate Jojo's life, a young professor named Pablo Herrera was circulating a petition at the University of Havana for the freedom of Mumia Abu-Jamal. It was not popular at that time in Cuba to speak up against human rights violations in the United States. I mean, it was the U.S. government, the Cuban government wanted to improve relations, and they thought we have to be careful not to interfere. Well, I thought they were wrong, and within a couple of years, they changed that. And Gloria La Riva and Leonard Weinglass were on the most popular television program that was broadcast all over the entire nation of Cuba. And when we got there 4 years later, in 2000, every single human being in Cuba knew about Mumia Abu-Jamal. And also knew when we got there in the year 2000, they knew about Shaka Sankofa. And that was thanks to another hero, the people who stood up to defend Mumia Abu-Jamal. And I want to say that in Cuba, not only do they stand up for Mumia, but it's the only place in the world I know where they have a monument to Julius and Ethel Rosenberg, which we went to on the night of the anniversary of the Constitution. In that same year, Mumia's son Mazi went with us on a trip to paint a mural at the Jojo White Community Center in one of the poorest communities in Havana. And Mazi did speak to 200,000 Cubans in Manzanillo who were rallied to demand the return of Elian to his father. And Mazi spoke to demand the freedom for his father, and I think it was a great celebration. And it was a great feeling to see 250,000 Cuban people chant Viva Mumia Abu-Jamal, Viva Revolution, Viva Jojo White, Viva Shaka Sankofa, Viva Revolution. It was a great, great feeling. Now, speaking of heroes, in this work to end these injustices, there's a lot of rewards too. I've gotten to know people like Kilu and Yashna, like Pan-Africa, Dennis Bernstein, all the people up here on the stage. There are great rewards as well as sacrifices that need to be made. And one of my favorite new brothers, new friends, is Shuja Graham, who spent 3 years on death row in San Quentin here in California. He was a Panther then, and I can't call him a former Panther because he's still fighting like a Panther. When he walked out of San Quentin prison after 3 years on death row, he didn't just turn and put his tail between his legs and go get a job and just think of himself. He continued to struggle for 25 years now. He's been walking around this country to defend the brothers and sisters that are still on death row and still imprisoned in this country and unjustly. So I want to end here and introduce a great new hero of mine who's marched across this country, who will never give up the struggle for the human race and for human rights and justice for everybody. And if you look closely on his cap, it's got a quote from a great Bertolt Brecht poem. And maybe he'll tell you about that, what it says on his cap. So shoot your brain, would you come up here and tell the people about the struggle?
I don't want to describe myself as Sujat Graham, the victim who was on death row. I'm Sujat Graham, the revolutionary survivor who existed at San Quentin in the 1970s, who stood up against racism, who stood up against brutality. Only one regret that I have in my lifetime, I only started when I was 18 years old. So to you all today who are here, I just want to say to you all, I'm living evidence that you can do it. Because many years ago, when I was on death row fighting for my life, you all told me to keep the faith and it would be all right. And I kept the faith and you freed me. And I'm free. I'm here to say to you all, I want to fight until the day I die. And for the people who are from Cuba to Cuban 5, I want to thank you all for your fight and anything that we can do on behalf of the Cuban 5, we will try to do that. Because in the days of the 70s and the 60s, it was Cuba who gave us refuge when the police and the state of the United States was fighting us. My friends, when I got out and count me on my hand, it was over 5 people who had been on that road and got out. Now it's 135 of us who went through the criminal justice system and finally prevailed. It's over 200 people who had life in prison that is free now because of your effort and thanks to DNA. So to you all, keep the struggle going. Long live the spirit to free Mumia. Long live the spirit of our struggle to make a revolution.
Our next speaker is Tom Lacey. He is the central leader of the Peace and Freedom Party in California. He is a leader of the anti-war movement. He is one of the longest standing activists. We took a pledge when we formed the MOB that we would continue until Mumia was free, and we're still here, and largely because of efforts like Tom and other members and leaders of the Mumia. Let's give a warm welcome to Peace and Freedom Party's Tom Lacey.
Thank you, Jeff. I just want to tell you we are celebrating this year 40 years on the ballot in California. March 16th marks the 40th anniversary of our first convention. And we will be having an event on the 16th at the Brava Center showing of Sir No Sir. And we don't have flyers yet, but you're all invited to join us there. I have been privileged to serve on the steering committee of the Mobilization of Free Mumia for the last 13 years. And while I've been on that steering committee, one of our fellow members of that steering committee that has been fighting for Mumia's freedom with the mobilization and standing with us is Gloria Lariga. Gloria is a member of the International Answer Coalition and is the chair of the Free the Five committee. And I am very proud to offer her. She's also on the ballot, I should say, because there are primary elections this Tuesday. Peace and Freedom Party has several candidates for president, and those of you who are registered in Peace and Freedom will be able to cast a ballot, and one of those candidates is Gloria Lariga. So, Gloria, you want to step up here? We have an award for you. people in the Bay Area know Gloria well for her. She's been a real fighter in the anti-war movement and on all fronts. And she's also a national figure. So we're very proud to have her as a presidential candidate.
Because they normally give awards to individuals, I accepted it on behalf of really an organization, the Answer Coalition, all the activists who have worked with me, because everything is a collective effort. So I want to really thank the mobilization to free Mumia Abu-Jamal, Jeff Magler, Pam Africa, Laura Herrera, and everybody else who has worked on behalf of Mumia all these years. I know that we've been involved too in many, many efforts, both the marches as well as, for example, the Democrat Convention in the year 2000 when we made our main demand in Los Angeles, the demand for freedom of Mumia and all the other efforts it's taken. It's really important today that we've looked at what has been accomplished in the hardest of times. I often think about the period in which Mumia was arrested. Of course, that's just the centuries of the oppression of African Americans in this country. The struggle has never really been over, and the police brutality, police racism, especially for a city like Philly. But he was tried and convicted in a time when the sentiment for the death penalty was at an all-time high, and has been for a number of years. Whipped up by politicians, from presidents to DAs to those who run for governor and so on. An executioner like George W. Bush, whose one of his hallmarks was to execute Shaka Sankofa in the middle of his campaign, which assured his presidency. And yet the persistence of the movement, of the vanguard, those of us who are so busy across this country fighting on all kinds of causes, against the war, for justice, for housing, everything we do, labor rights, but who keep the struggle for prisoners, political prisoners, people on death row in the forefront as well. It's not a huge movement, but it's a very necessary movement. And I think we're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. I think we're turning the corner on the struggle against the death penalty. It's been the movement against the death penalty, the movement for Mumia, that has really together helped bring hope for him. I do have hope for him in the court, only because the struggle has been so persistent. That's really been the key. And I am so excited about the idea of the day after in the struggle for Mumia, because I don't know which came first, but in the National Committee to Free the Cuban Five, we also put out a call recently saying the day after the court decision, which we are awaiting an appeals decision from the 11th Circuit Court, is argued that it's the most conservative appeals court in the country, along vying for the competition with the 5th Circuit in the South. But the 11th Circuit is about to issue an opinion, well, it could be in 5 months, 6 months, 2 months, 1 month, and a year. For the Cuban Five, 2 years ago they won the right to a new trial. All the convictions were thrown out. But then the government appealed. People were taken unawares by that. The plenum accepted it in Atlanta, and unfortunately they affirmed the trial court's conviction of the five. They have 4 life terms. So we are saying, when this decision comes down, no matter what the decision, positive, negative, or mixed, we must be in the streets the next day and mobilize in the next weeks and days to demand that the Bush or the future administration not appeal against the five, but they free them immediately. We must keep highest of all the demand for freedom for Mumia, however it happens. And I think that all of us, we've had several demonstrations at the federal court at 7th and Mission. Please, make sure you sign up with a mobilization. Make sure you're on that emergency call. Make sure you not only come on the day after the court decision for Mumia, but that you bring friends. And as Pam said, in the meantime, keep fighting, keep on the move for Mumia Abu-Jamal. Free the Cuban Five, free the San Francisco 8, free Mutullah Shakur, free Leonard Peltier, free the Palestinian political prisoners, free Lynn Stewart, and free all the political prisoners, and tear down the prison walls. Thank you. Thank you, Jordan.
I don't see J.R. Noel here.
It's my pleasure to introduce a comrade and a friend for very many years. Keela Nyasha is a former Black Panther. She's a revolutionary journalist and is often featured in the Bayview newspaper. If you are lucky enough to be on her email list, you'll find that she is a general disseminator of revolutionary news of all the people that we've seen and honored today, as well as more. And she's also a disabled activist and a feminist. And I'm so lucky to know her. I've learned so much from her, and she is an inspiration to us all. And most of all, she has a wonderful Friday TV show called Freedom is a Constant Struggle at 7:30 on Channel 76. It's a live call-in show, and just last Friday, guess who? She had Pam Africa on as a guest. So please welcome Keela Nyasha.
Thank you so much, Merle. Thank you, everyone who helped put this event together. Thank you so very much. I'm so honored to be here. And I have to give a special thanks to Jeff for getting Pam over to my house last night, where she spent the night. And I've just had such a wonderful, special time with her. And I want, I'm going to put Will on the spot and ask him if he would please stand up so people can know that Will Africa, whom I had first met in '95 when he was about 12, all grown up, is a father of 4, and a wonderful father. I was just talking, he spent the night too. So I got to talk to him a lot and learn all about the Move family, and I love their kids. They're the healthiest kids I've ever met in my whole life. And my Pam, I just love her to death. And I have to tell you that my phone rang, is this Sunday? My phone rang yesterday at about 4:30, and it was Mumia. And he sends his love to everyone. And I got up this morning and went to see Jaleel, also known as Tony Bottom, one of the San Francisco 8, who was locked up in the San Francisco County Jail, and he sends his love, and he's doing fine. Court is happening. They're all the 8 are due in court Thursday, 9:30 a.m., February 7th, and I'll be interviewing on Freedom is a Constant Struggle Richard Brown and hopefully one of the lawyers next Friday on Freedom is a Constant Struggle. And I just wanted to let you know that Jaleel, they took his life from him. He was 19 when they kidnapped him off the streets of Panther. And he's been in jail 36 years now. Herman Bell has been in 34 years. The good news is that the conspiracy charges have been dropped against 5 of the 8, which let Richard O'Neill completely off the hook. And so he's out, except that no sooner than he was out of the case, the prosecutor subpoenaed him to testify. So that's problematic, needless to say. On this coming Thursday, the lawyers will be arguing for Francisco Torres, also known as Cisco, Herman and Jaleel, to also have the conspiracy charges dropped. What they're saying is that since they were forced out of California, all 3 extradited to New York, and in prison, they do not have the statute, this 3-year California statute of limitations does not apply to them. And of course, that's just nonsense. So we have our work cut out for us. And I wanted to point out
out to you that Mumia Abu-Jamal was a Panther and co-founded the Philadelphia chapter of the Black Panther Party when he was only 16. And ironically, he and I joined 15 or maybe. Anyway, yeah, because he and I joined the party. And the reason I remember is because I'm about to tell my own age. We both joined the party in '69, I in New Haven and he in Philly. And actually, since we've been communicating, we learned that we were both at the Revolutionary People's Constitutional Convention together. Only I wasn't looking at 15-year-olds at that time. I don't want to take up too much time. But I just wanted to say that we're in a terrible climate. This so-called war on terror is a war on freedom fighters, okay? And they kidnapped these elders off the street, but people wouldn't let them keep them in jail. So we do have power because 6 of the 8 were almost immediately gotten out on bail because we did that. And we are, I'm sure the pressure we have to put on the state right now is to drop all the charges because this is a 37-year-old cold case and it's the murder of one police officer in August of 1971. And they don't have any new evidence that they claim to have. They don't have any fingerprints, they don't have any, they don't have any, they tried to pull this DNA stuff, it didn't match anybody, you know. They don't have any ballistics evidence, they lost the gun. I mean, it's a nonsensical case, and it's nothing but vengeful retaliation for our very correct stand in the 60s and 70s, okay? So it's very important that we free Mumia. That it's outrageous that he's in jail because Mumia is innocent. Everybody knows he's innocent. They know he's innocent. They know damn well he didn't do this crime. So, but they want him silenced. He's the voice of the voiceless. They want him silenced. It's that simple, really. You can get into all the details and all the proof and all that, but trust me, he didn't do this crap. And we have to get him off death row. They've had him 25 years for nothing. It's outrageous. So we need to get him out of there. We need to get Herman Bell and Jaleel out of jail. We need all of our, and we have to make sure they don't put the other 6 back in. Okay, so the bottom line is we have our work cut out for us. Power to the people, and the power of the people won't stop because the Palestinians broke down the wall and showed the power of the people. So, all power to the people.
Wait a minute.
Gloria forgot her award, and I want to say she played a major role in helping us mobilize 25,000 people for Mumia and helping us with being part of the team. Thank you. And where's Daryl? You don't get to talk to organize a rally for 250,000 people where Mumia's son speaks very often. You got to take that award. We're very proud to give it to you. We want Pam to come up to say a few special things. We have 2 people that were unable to stay long enough to be here. One of them is Noel Hanrahan, who's the director of Prison Radio, and the other is J.R. Valerie, who shares flashpoints with Dennis Bernstein. So Pam Africa is going to say a few words about them and accept the award on their behalf. We're very, very sorry that they couldn't come, and we honor their contribution to the struggle. They've been central to it. JR's poster out there with a huge fact sheet on Mumia is in the back, and of course, we did receive a, Dennis, you gotta hear this. We did receive a, what do you call those silver things, a DVD, is it a CD? That's my technological background. Mumia sent a message to us that we didn't have a player. Oh, folks. So we're going to give it to Dennis, and maybe you can play it on KBFA. Let's welcome again the head of the International Concern, Family and Friends of Mumia Abu-Jamal, Pan-African.
Thank you again. And we got to really thank the mobilization for the excellent work that the mobilization always does, and everybody else who participated here. On behalf of J.R. Raleigh, who's done work for Mumia, who has traveled across the United States, also internationally, and co-hosts on Flashpoints, and does the Block Report. Thank you. I'm going to get this right to him. And JR is going to always continue to do the work no matter where he's at with Chairman Fred and the POCC report. Noel Hanrahan, on behalf of Noel, who couldn't be here because number one, she had to hurry up and get that piece for Dennis, get it over here, and then get back because Mumia was calling back with another statement for this week's commentary. Noel was a tireless worker and working 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, and darn, getting the information out for Mumia. She again said she's very sorry that she had to leave because she had to get those commentaries out that we look forward to every week. Can't say enough about her. Oh, you got me, Robert Bryan? You talk about Robert, right? And that's the attorney, and you can do that one. There's not too much more that we can say about these people. Most people know Noel, they know JR, like the other tireless fighters up here. They will continue to do the work. You can look to see them every day, just constantly on the front line. And as I look out in the audience, on behalf of myself, my family, Mumia, and thank y'all so much. And because without y'all, and there will be no international concerned family Mumia Abu-Jamal, no mobilization, and or anything else. It's the people who forms all these magnificent organizations. And I'd like to thank Gloria as well too, because she was the one who was instrumental along with Jeff, and getting myself to Cuba as well on behalf of Mumia, and that was one hell of an experience, to meet Fidel Castro, President Fidel Castro, and Sister Asada Shakur, and I thank both of y'all for that. And I want to let you know one more thing since I got time. There's a group that's forming, a young Cuban hip-hop group, and that's doing work around the Cuban 5 and bringing awareness to the plight of people in Cuba. I want to get with people to help, do something to help them, young hip-hoppers, get out the information of what's going on. All right. Hip-hop in the background. Thank you on behalf of JR and the World Hand in Hand, and thank you, Dennis, for Flashpoints.
Robert Bryan told us that he might not be able to be here. He was speaking at one of the most prestigious conferences in Germany called the Rosa Luxemburg Conference. And so we had an award for Robert, who is the lead counsel for Mumia Abu-Jamal, and he was going to fill us in on updating the case and telling us a little bit of background. But with all the speakers here and all the literature that we have on the tables, Labor Committee to Free Mumia, Mobilization to Free Mumia, Campaign Against the Death Penalty, Answer, and did I leave out any other tables? And Peace and Freedom Party, Freedom Socialist Party, where we use for our headquarters. I'd like to thank you all for coming, for providing the information. I have just one announcement, and then we will adjourn. I am one of the organizers of a call for an open U.S. national conference. Stop the war in Iraq, bring the troops home now. And it's the first open conference of the broad anti-war movement. Everyone is invited, every organization. We're going to see if we can build a united mass movement that is based on 5 fundamental principles. The first is a unified movement. The second is bring the troops home now. The third is democracy in the movement. Mass conferences, one person, one vote. The fourth is a politically independent movement. And I can't remember what the fifth was. But it is, and it's out now, did I say that?
No, you didn't say it. In the streets.
Okay, well anyway, if you'd like to be an endorser of this conference, thousands of people are signing up to endorse it, to attend it in Cleveland, Ohio. Come get one of these statements from me and put your name down. Thank you on behalf, it's going to be June 28th, June 29th in Cleveland, Ohio, sponsored by the National Assembly to end the Iraq War and occupation. Thank you on behalf of the mobilization of Free Mumia. This struggle will continue until Mumia is with us in person in San Francisco, a free man, and he has brought all of the struggles that you've heard about together and urges a unity for between all of the different currents in the movement to fight not only for his freedom but for social justice. Thank you for coming, and we'll see you again.